The sky over the historic rolling hills of Kentucky was no longer blue. It had turned the color of dried blood. An apocalyptic wildfire, fueled by a sudden drought and shifting winds, was devouring everything in its path with a terrifying roar. The air was so thick with black soot and ash that breathing felt like inhaling broken glass. In the center of this hellscape stood the main barn of a horse farm, a wooden cathedral now besieged by a red monster that threatened to consume it whole. Inside, the heat was unbearable, a physical weight that pressed down on the lungs, turning the oxygen into poison. Deep within the smoking ruins of the stable, a tragedy was unfolding in the shadows. Majesty, a prize-winning mare known for her grace, was lying on the straw-covered floor, her body twisted in agony. A heavy oak beam, dislodged by the collapsing roof, had pinned her rear leg to the ground. Her eyes, usually calm and wise, were now wide with the primal terror of a prey animal. Trapped in a corner, she was exhausted, her coat slick with sweat and ash, having given up the fight against the weight crushing her bone. She had accepted that this fiery tomb would be her end. But Majesty was not alone in the dark. Standing over her head, shielding her eyes from the falling embers with his own body, was Cooper. Cooper was a golden retriever, with a heart made of pure gold and steel. He wasn't tied up. The barn doors were open enough for a dog to squeeze through. He could have saved himself, but the thought never crossed his loyal mind. To Cooper, Majesty wasn't just a horse. She was his family, his charge. He stayed, licking her velvet nose frantically, trying to keep her awake, barking at the smoke as if his voice alone could push back the flames. Outside, the chaos was deafening. Sirens wailed, mixing with the panicked whinnies of evacuated horses. Silas, the farm's 62-year-old foreman, was a man carved from granite and faith. He had worked this land for 40 years, and every animal here was like a child to him. His face was smeared with soot, his hands blistered from leading terrified stallions onto trailers. "Is everyone out? Did we get them all?" he screamed over the roar of the fire, coughing violently. The firefighters were shouting orders to pull back, signaling that the main barn was a lost cause. Silas was about to jump into the last escape truck when a cold realization hit him harder than the heat. He patted his leg, a habit. He had done 1,000,000 times a day for a decade. Nothing. "Cooper, Cooper," he yelled, spinning around. His shadow, the dog that never left his side, was gone. Panic, colder than ice, gripped Silas's heart. He scanned the yard, his eyes stinging from the smoke. No, don't tell me you're in there, boy," he prayed, his voice breaking. He knew Cooper's loyalty was his greatest virtue and his greatest danger. Suddenly, a golden blur shot out from the wall of black smoke, emanating from the barn entrance. It was Cooper. His beautiful fur was singed, his tail tucked, coughing as he ran. Silas dropped to his knees, opening his arms, relief washing over him. "Thank God. Come here, boy, let's go," he cried out. But Cooper didn't run into his arms. The dog stopped 5 yards away, planting his feet firmly in the dirt. He looked at Silas, then turned his head back toward the burning inferno and let out a bark. Not a playful woof, but a deep, commanding demand that sent shivers down Silas's spine. Cooper looked at his master one last time, his eyes pleading, "She is still in there, follow me." And then, in an act of bravery that defied every survival instinct, the dog turned around and sprinted back into the mouth of the beast. He ran straight back into the fire. Silas stood frozen for a split second. The firefighters yelled, "Hey, get back here, it's too unstable." But Silas didn't hear them. He only saw his best friend running to die. Without a second thought, the old foreman pulled his hat down, grabbed a wet rag from a bucket and ran after the dog, disappearing into the smoke. Inside the barn, the situation was a nightmare. The visibility was near zero. Silas followed the sound of Cooper's frantic barking. "Cooper, where are you?" he choked out. He stumbled over debris, the heat searing his skin. Then, through the haze, he saw it, the scene that would stay with him until his dying day. Cooper wasn't just sitting by Majesty, he was tugging. The dog had the horse's leather halter in his teeth and was pulling with all his might, his paws slipping on the floor, trying to drag a 1,000-pound animal to safety. Majesty was groaning, the sound weak and defeated. The beam on her leg was massive, a piece of structural timber that was smoldering, ready to catch fire fully. Cooper released the halter when he saw Silas and ran to the beam, scratching at it with his paws, looking at Silas, then at the wood, then back at Silas. "Help her, Dad. Help her!" His eyes screamed. The dog had stayed to signal the location. He had risked being burned alive just to guide the human hands that could perform the miracle he couldn't. This is the moment that defines a hero. Cooper could be safe outside, but he chose to stand in the fire for his friend. Look at the love in this dog's eyes. He is willing to die rather than leave her alone. If this level of loyalty touches your soul, please hit the like button and subscribe. Let's pray that God protects Silas, Cooper, and Majesty in this furnace. They are trapped, the roof is groaning above them, and time has run out. May the angels watch over them now. The heat was intensifying. Silas rushed to Majesty's side, falling to his knees beside the trap. He touched the mare's neck. She was soaking wet with fear sweat. "I got you, girl. Old Silas is here," he whispered, though he was terrified. He grabbed the beam with his gloved hands and heaved. He gritted his teeth, his veins popping in his neck. It didn't budge. It was too heavy. The fire crackled above them, a piece of burning wood falling just inches from Cooper's tail. The dog didn't flinch. He just barked at the wood, standing guard. "I can't lift it," Silas shouted in frustration, tears of smoke and despair mixing on his face. He looked around wildly. This was it. This was how they died. But then, his eyes landed on an old tractor jack sitting in the corner, a relic from a repair job weeks ago. It was heavy, rusty, and 10 feet away. Through a curtain of falling sparks, Silas looked at Cooper. "Guard her, boy, don't let her move." He sprinted for the jack. The invisible villain of the fire roared louder, as if angry that its meal was fighting back. This is the end of Act 1. The heroes are reunited, but they are trapped in a burning coffin. The tool to save them is within reach, but the roof is about to collapse. Silas has the heart of a lion, but he needs the strength of a giant. And Cooper is the anchor holding them all together, but they didn't know that the worst was yet to come. The fire was about to cut off their only exit. Silas lunged through the suffocating grey haze, his boots kicking up sparks as he reached the corner of the stable. The heavy iron jack was there, just as he remembered, but it was hot to the touch, baking in the radiant heat of the encroaching flames. He grabbed the handle, his leather gloves hissing against the metal, and dragged it back toward Majesty. The air was now so hot. It felt like breathing inside an oven. Above them, the wooden rafters groaned and popped like gunshots, threatening to rain down death at any second. Time wasn't just running out, it was already gone. Cooper was going berserk. The golden retriever wasn't just barking, he was herding the fire itself. Every time a chunk of burning hay fell near Majesty's head, Cooper would snap at it, pushing it away with his nose, risking burns to keep his sister safe. He turned to Silas, his bark sharp and urgent. "Hurry up, she's scared." The dog's bravery gave the old man a surge of adrenaline that defied his age. Silas slid the jack onto the floor, kicking away the burning straw to find a solid patch of concrete beneath the debris. If the jack slipped, the beam would crush Majesty's leg completely. "Steady, girl, easy now," Silas coughed, struggling to wedge the nose of the jack under the massive oak beam. The wood was smoldering, the heat radiating from it singeing his eyebrows. Majesty thrashed. Her head, her eyes rolling back in terror. She could feel the fire getting closer to her flank. Silas needed her to stay still. "Cooper, calm her down," he commanded. The dog understood instantly. Cooper pressed his entire body against Majesty's neck, licking her face aggressively, his tail thumping against her chest. The mare focused on the dog, freezing just long enough for Silas to get the jack in place. Silas began to crank the handle. Clank, clank, clank. The rusty mechanism fought him, every inch of the way. His shoulder muscles screamed, and the blisters on his hands burst inside his gloves, but he didn't stop. The heavy beam groaned, lifting a fraction of an inch. "Come on, you piece of junk," Silas roared, pouring every ounce of his 40 years of labor into that handle. The beam lifted another inch. The pressure on Majesty's leg was easing, but the structure of the barn was destabilizing. By lifting the support beam, he was risking bringing the whole roof down on top of them. Then disaster struck. The jack, slick with grease and ash, slipped sideways on the wet concrete. Bam! The beam crashed back down, missing Majesty's leg by a miracle but sending a shockwave of pain through her body. She screamed, a high-pitched whinny that tore through Silas's soul. She tried to scramble up in a panic, thrashing her legs, which only made it worse. Cooper jumped back, startled, but immediately returned to the fray, barking inches from Silas's face as if to say, "Fix it, fix it now." Silas felt a wave of nausea. He had failed. The smoke was getting thicker, turning from grey to pitch black. He couldn't see the exit anymore. "I'm sorry, Majesty, I'm trying," he sobbed, wiping sweat and soot from his eyes. He reset the jack, jamming it deeper under the wood this time. He looked at the ceiling. A main rafter was sagging dangerously directly above their heads. They had seconds, not minutes. He started cranking again, faster this time, fueled by the sheer terror of dying. In that box, clank, clank, clank. The sound was the heartbeat of their survival. Cooper stood directly under the sagging roof, looking up and barking at the timber, acting as a spotter. The beam rose again, 2 inches, 3 inches. It was heavy, impossibly heavy, but it was moving. Majesty sensed the release. She stopped thrashing and started to pull her leg back. "Not yet, sweetie." "A little more," Silas gritted out, his vision blurring. The heat was making him dizzy. The carbon monoxide, poisoning starting to take hold. Suddenly, a large piece of flaming debris detached from the ceiling. Cooper saw it coming. He lunged forward, slamming his body into Silas's leg, knocking the old man sideways, just as the burning wood crashed exactly where Silas had been standing a second before. Silas hit the ground hard but scrambled back up instantly. Cooper had saved his life. The dog shook the sparks off his coat and barked again, relentless. "Good boy! Good boy!" Silas gasped. He grabbed the jack handle again. One final heave, crack. The beam lifted 6 inches. "Now pull!" Silas screamed at the horse, slapping her rump. Majesty, fueled by pain and the instinct to live, kicked out with her good leg and scrambled. She dragged her injured limb across the concrete. It scraped and bled, but it came free. She was out. The trap was sprung, but the effort left her collapsed on the floor, too weak to stand. The beam, no longer supported by her body, crashed down onto the concrete with a thud that shook the floor. If her leg had still been there, it would have been severed. "Get up, Majesty, we have to go." Silas pulled on her halter, but she was dead weight. The smoke inhalation had sapped her strength. She laid her head down in the ash, closing her eyes. She was giving up. The fire was roaring like a freight train now, consuming the stalls just 10 feet away. The wall of heat was blistering. Silas pulled, but he couldn't lift a 1,000-pound horse. He fell to his knees, coughing, hugging her neck. "Please don't die on me now, not after all this." This was the true test of resistance. It wasn't the beam anymore. It was the will to live. Cooper wasn't having it. The dog ran to Majesty's ear and let out a sharp, piercing bark. He nipped at her heels, not to hurt, but to stimulate. He ran to the door, then back to her, creating a loop of energy. "Run! Life! Run! Life!" He looked at Silas, then at the horse, his eyes burning with intensity. He was commanding them to fight. Majesty opened one eye. She saw her faithful friend, the Golden Angel, dancing in the sparks. She saw Silas, the man who had fed her every morning since she was a foal, crying into her mane. Something sparked inside her, a deep, ancestral drive to run from the fire. She snorted, clearing her lungs of soot. She planted her front hooves. Her muscles trembled violently. "That's it! Come on!" Silas shouted, seeing the shift. He got under her shoulder, pushing upward. "Up! Up!" Cooper barked in rhythm with Silas's heaves. With a groan of exertion that sounded like the earth splitting, Majesty pushed herself up. Her rear leg dangled uselessly for a moment, then she tested it. She flinched, but she put weight on it. She was standing. She was swaying, terrified and burned, but she was on her feet. The path to the door was a gauntlet of fire. The roof was raining liquid fire now. Silas grabbed the lead rope. "Stay close to me. Cooper, lead the way." The dog didn't need to be told twice. Lowered his head, sniffing the air for the freshest oxygen, and trotted into the wall of smoke. Silas wrapped his jacket around Majesty's eyes to keep her from panicking at the sight of the flames. They began the slow, agonizing march toward the light. 3 souls bound by a rope and a promise. They are out of the trap, but they are still inside the burning barn. The roof is collapsing around them. Are you holding your breath? This loyalty is unmatched. Subscribe to see if they make it out. Alive. Your like sends strength to Cooper. The bravest boy in the world. Now let's see if they can outrun the collapse. The journey to the exit felt like walking through the belly of a volcano. Cooper, low to the ground where the air was marginally cooler, acted as a living GPS. He barked sharply, once for left, twice for right, guiding Silas and Majesty through the maze of falling debris. Silas couldn't see anything but swirling black smoke. He was steering the terrified horse entirely on faith, and the sound of his dog's voice. Majesty stumbled, her injured leg dragging, her breath coming in ragged, whistling gasps. The heat was searing the hair off Silas's arms, but he didn't let go of the rope. "Almost there, girl. Follow the dog," he screamed, his voice raw. They burst through the main barn doors just as the structure gave its final death groan. They stumbled out into the cool night air, collapsing onto the wet grass of the paddock just 50 yards away. Behind them, a deafening crack echoed across the valley. Silas turned just in time to see the roof of the barn implode, sending a geyser of sparks and flame 100 feet into the air. If they had been 10 seconds slower, they would have been buried in that fiery grave. They were out. They were alive. But as the adrenaline crashed, the reality of their conditions set in. Majesty didn't just lay down, she collapsed heavily, her sides heaving violently. She wasn't getting enough oxygen. The invisible villain had followed them out. Smoke inhalation. Her nostrils were caked with black soot, and her gums were turning a terrifying shade of blue. Silas, coughing up black phlegm himself, scrambled to her head. "Help! Over here! We need a vet!" he screamed at the firefighters who were rushing toward them. The fire was behind them, but Majesty was drowning on dry land, her lungs coated in toxic residue. Dr. Marianne, the on-site equine veterinarian, rushed over with her trauma kit. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. She pressed a stethoscope to Majesty's chest and her face went pale. Her airways are swelling shut. "She's in respiratory distress," she yelled over the roar of the fire trucks. "We need to intubate her immediately, or she's going to suffocate right here on the grass." Silas held Majesty's head, stroking her sweat-soaked mane, tears streaming down his soot-stained face. "Fight, Majesty. You didn't come this far to quit." While the team worked frantically on the horse, a young vet, Tech, tried to pull Cooper away to check his injuries. The dog was limping, his paws burned from the hot concrete, and his golden fur was singed black in patches. But Cooper refused to leave. He growled, a low, warning rumble when they tried to leash him. He limped back to Majesty's side, curling up against her belly, resting his chin on her flank. He was her anchor. He knew she was panicking, and he was the only thing keeping her calm. The tech looked at Dr. Marianne, who just shook her head. "Let him stay. He's the reason she's alive. He's her life support right now." The next hour was a blur of medical chaos. They inserted a tube down Majesty's windpipe to bypass the swelling, pumping pure oxygen into her damaged lungs. They started IV fluids to combat the shock and flushed her eyes, which were irritated by the smoke. The burn on her leg was deep and ugly, the skin peeling away. But Dr. Marianne confirmed the bone hadn't rebroken. "The leg is the least of our worries," she told her. Silas gravely, "It's the lungs. If the inflammation gets worse tonight, her heart will give out. The next 6 hours are the coin toss." They couldn't move her to the clinic. She was too unstable to travel. They had to turn the paddock into a field hospital. Silas refused to leave, even though the paramedics wanted to take him to the hospital for his own burns. He sat in the grass, holding Majesty's IV bag, while Cooper kept guard. The dog's paws were finally treated with cooling gel and bandaged, giving him the appearance of wearing little white boots. Despite the pain, Cooper kept his eyes fixed on Majesty's face, watching for every rise and fall of her chest. As the night wore on, the adrenaline wore off and the pain set in. Majesty groaned, her legs thrashing weakly as the painkillers fought the agony of the burns. At around 3 a.m., her breathing became shallow. The monitor beeped an alarm. Her oxygen levels were dropping. Silas felt a cold grip of fear. "She's fading." "Doc!" he shouted. Majesty's eyes were rolling back, the fight draining out of her. She was exhausted. The fire had taken too much. It seemed the miracle was about to end in tragedy. But Cooper sensed the shift in energy. He stood up on his bandaged paws, ignoring his own pain, and moved to Majesty's head. He didn't bark this time. He whimpered, a high-pitched pleading sound, and began to lick the tears and soot from her face. He nudged her cheek with his wet nose, over and over again. It was a Clear message. Wake up. Stay with me. We are a team. It was the purest form of love, a transfer of will from one species to another. Majesty blinked. The familiar scent of her dog, her best friend, cut through the haze of medication and shock. She focused on Cooper. She took a deep, shuddering breath, her ribs expanding fully for the first time in hours. The oxygen monitor stopped beeping. The numbers climbed. 85%, 88%, 92%. Dr. Marianne checked the vitals and let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. "I don't believe it," she whispered. "She's stabilizing. That dog just pulled her back from the edge." By the time the sun began to rise over the smoky ruins of the farm, the crisis had passed. The swelling in her throat had gone down enough to remove the tube. Majesty was weak, battered and scarred, but she was breathing on her own. The first thing she did when she lifted her head was nuzzle Cooper, who was fast asleep against her neck. Silas, exhausted and battered, watched the sunrise with a heart full of gratitude. They had lost the barn, they had lost the equipment, but they hadn't lost the family. Later that morning, the full extent of the miracle was revealed. Dr. Marianne did a thorough check of the leg. "It's going to be a long road, Silas," she said, examining the burns. "She'll need skin grafts and months of rehab. She might never race or show again." Silas looked at the horse, who was currently munching on a handful of grass Silas was hand-feeding. I don't care if she never runs a day in her life," Silas replied, his voice thick with emotion. "She's alive. That's the only trophy that matters." The bond between the three of them had shifted into something legendary. The firefighters who were cleaning up came over to pay their respects. They took off their helmets when they looked at Cooper. "That's the bravest firefighter I've ever seen," the chief said, kneeling to pet the dog. Cooper wagged his tail, happy to be the center of attention, but he never moved more than a foot from Majesty. He knew his job wasn't done yet. He was her nurse now. The invisible villain of the fire had taken everything material, but it had failed to break their spirit. In fact, it had forged a bond that was fireproof. As Majesty finally managed to stand up on her own, shaky but determined, a cheer went up from the gathered crowd of farmhands and neighbors. She was the phoenix rising from the ashes, and Cooper was the guardian angel who had guided her flight. Majesty survived the night. It is a true miracle, but look at them, not covered in bandages and scars. The recovery will be painful and expensive. Cooper is a true hero who deserves the world. Hit the like button to send healing prayers to this family. Now get ready to see the most beautiful recovery in history. 3 months have passed since that night of fire and ash, and the transformation of the farm is nothing short of biblical. The blackened, scarred earth has been reclaimed by nature, covered now in a carpet of vibrant emerald green Kentucky bluegrass. The smell of smoke is a distant memory, replaced by the sweet scent of clover and fresh timber. The sound of hammers and saws rings out across the valley as the community came together to help Silas rebuild the barn, bigger, safer, and filled with love. But the real miracle isn't the building, it's the souls who inhabit it. Then, the moment we've all been waiting for, the glow up, the gate to the main. Pasture swings open and Majesty steps out. She is breathtaking. Her coat, once singed and dull, now gleams like polished mahogany under the sun. The terrible burns on her legs have healed into silver scars, badges of honor that tell the story of her survival. She doesn't walk with the hesitation of a victim. She moves with the grace of a queen who has conquered death. She stops, lifts her head to the wind, and lets out a powerful, joyful whinny that echoes off the hills. And right there at her heels, as always, is Cooper. The Golden Guardian has his fur back, thick and lustrous, waving like a flag of victory. He isn't wearing bandages anymore. He bounces around Majesty, barking playfully, nipping at the air, trying to goad her into a race. It's hard to believe this is the same dog who walked into an inferno. He isn't traumatized, he's empowered. He walks with a strut, knowing he is the protector of the herd. The bond between horse and dog has only deepened. They are no longer two separate species, but one soul in 2 bodies. Then magic happens. Majesty accepts Cooper's challenge. She pins her ears back playfully and takes off. It's not a full gallop, but a rhythmic, thundering canter that shakes the ground. Cooper runs alongside her, his tongue lolling out in a grin matching her stride for stride. It is a scene of pure, unadulterated freedom. To see them running against the backdrop of the rebuilding farm is to witness the ultimate victory of life over destruction. They are the living proof that love is stronger than fire. Silas watches them from the porch of the tack room, a mug of coffee in his hand and a smile that reaches his eyes. He is fully healed too, though his hands still bear the marks of that night. He isn't just an employee anymore. The farm owners honored him and Cooper with a plaque on the new barn, built on faith saved by loyalty. Silas often jokes that Cooper runs the farm now, and Majesty is just his oversized assistant. The gloom of the tragedy has been completely washed away by the light of their recovery. Life has settled into a beautiful new routine. Every evening, when Majesty is led into her new fireproof stall, Cooper refuses to sleep in the house. He has a custom-made bed right inside the stable, next to Majesty's door. He sleeps there every night guarding his best friend. The invisible villain of fear has been banished. Majesty is calm, eating heartily, and has even started to trust the sound of crackling wood. Again, realizing that not every fire is a monster. As the sun begins to set over the Kentucky hills, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold, we find our heroes in their favorite spot. Silas sits on an old wooden bench under a massive oak tree that survived the blaze. He has his worn Bible open on his lap, reading a psalm of gratitude. Majesty is grazing peacefully nearby, the golden light catching the shine of her coat. And Cooper is resting his head on Majesty's front hooves, his eyes heavy with sleep, content in the knowledge that his family is safe. This story started with terror, but it ends with peace. It reminds us that even when the world is burning, there are angels who will walk through the flames to find us. Cooper didn't care that he was small and the fire was big. He only knew that his friend was in trouble. That is the lesson they leave us with. Loyalty isn't about size or strength. It's about staying when everyone else runs away. The fire is gone, but the warmth of their love will last forever. Moral question: Cooper risked his life to save a friend of a different species. Do you think animals have souls more pure than humans? Tell us your opinion in the comments. Emotional command: leave a like if you believe Cooper is a true hero sent by God. Comment Amen to bless this family and protect them from any future harm.